Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bridgend Political Owl. It's been a little while now. I had to stop for a little bit. First of all, I want to, before we get into today's topic and subject, I want to let you know that I am all right. This past month and a bit has been extremely difficult for me. Very difficult. I'm not completely better. Will I be back permanently? I don't know. Um, or will I just give up and stop doing this? I really don't know at this moment. I can't be entirely sure. Um, I will say that I'm okay. I think the best way to describe me at the moment is numb, which is a lot better than what I was a while ago. Um, as you can see in the bottom corner, I've got Samaritan's number up there. So if you're feeling like you're struggling and you need to talk to somebody, there's always Samaritans who will sit there and talk to you for as long as you need to. Um, and also, you've got family, friends, talk to them, and there are people out there who you may not even have met who just sit down and talk to you. So you're not alone. You're never alone. Anyway, let's get into today's topic, which is the budget. At Bridgend County Borough Council yesterday was passed, not unanimously. It was quite close. I think 25-20, I think it was, with a couple of abstentions. But we'll get on to that a bit later. All you need to know is it's passed. Now, I wasn't planning on coming back this early. I didn't think. I forgot about the budget, but the budget came up yesterday. I have been keeping one eye on things a little bit, but not really been totally interested. I've watched the meeting now a couple of times, and a pattern emerged throughout that meeting, which we'll point out later. But before we get to the budget, maybe a little bit of history as to why we're in this situation. If you believe, as the controlling party in BC does, or the Labour Party throughout the United Kingdom, all the problems we're suffering now are a result of one thing: the Tory Party. Years of austerity, Brexit, which I've got my own views on, which many people will have different views on it, which led to the pandemic response, which cost us billions and billions of pounds, not just as the UK, but in Wales as well. The Welsh Assembly government made their fair share of mistakes. Hello to my one viewer. Hello. Uh, yeah, they made their fair share of mistakes as well. But you can't just lay the blame at one party. Labour Party had their faults as well. The reason why we went into austerity in 2010 was because of Labour's poor financial policy that led to the collapse of the banks. Okay, you can't totally blame them for the banks collapsing, but they were warned well ahead of time that what these banks were doing was very risky with the subprime mortgage market in America. Yeah, they were warned ahead of time, and then they were warned again when Northern Rock started collapsing, and they took that into ownership. They deregulated the banks with the FSA, or at the time was the FSA, Financial Services Authority, took away a lot of the control from the Bank of England. But it goes even further back than that. You can look at the 80s with the selling off of the goods and services like British Gas and BT and things like that. But again, Tories they had to do that sort of thing. We had in 1976, we had the sterling crisis where the pound nearly completely collapsed. We were minutes away under the Labour government of that collapsing. And it goes further back. You can go back to World War II. You can go back to the Great War in the pandemic that happened then. So it's not just a failure of a Tory government for the last 12 years or 13 years, as it is now, coming up to. There's been failures along the way. And BCBC for the last 15 years has been in Labour control. And it's just one failure after another. Failure to plan, failure to be fiscally responsible, I would say. Anyway, we're going to get into the budget now. Now, the budget was passed yesterday in a full council meeting. Each councillor was allowed to ask one question, which seemed stupid when you've got something that's such a big priority. I know it went through all the scrutiny committees and they asked questions there and things like that, but that was just draft proposal. Now you've got the full budget in front of them. There must be many questions that many councillors wanted to ask, but they were limited to just one. Some were cheeky, as you'll see. We tried to get two questions in one statement, and some of it was allowed. Some were asked to just pick one. But I think the overall feeling from this, Labour championing it on social media, saying it's a great budget, it's a well-being budget. Now I've got the budget up. It's a big read, as you can see. There's a if I can get the right screen going. Let's just bring that up and put me at the side there. Right, let's go on to the correct screen. As you can see, there's actually, from the agenda yesterday, it was 280 pages. Over 100 of that was the budget. There's a lot to read. There's a lot of it that is pointless, doesn't need to be in there. It's just waffle and goes on and on. A lot of it you don't understand. But they were proud of something on page 20, and it's the interactive section. I think they called it the interactive. Just get up to it now, page 20, where it does a little breakdown of some of the services and how much they cost per household. That's all well and good. You've got the cost per household. If we just take those, I believe there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14 there. Now, the 14 there, it comes to a cost of £4,000 per year per household. Right, that's how much BC spends per household. It doesn't say how many households there are in this, so it really doesn't make sense. It's a good start, but half the budget, well, the majority of the budget, a normal person can't understand. You have to have things explained to you. I've messaged friends throughout the day trying to get explanations on things and things like that. Anyway, what I'm going to do is we're going to come to the first question that was actually asked yesterday during the council meeting in regards to the budget. Now, the first question came from Councillor Freya Bledsoe, Oldcastle. And you'll find this throughout the thing. There were a couple of questions asked by Labour councillors, but they weren't specifically pushing on something on the budget. But a lot of these are independent councillors. A lot of these, well, all of these actually, are going to be from councillors who are part of the Bridgend County Independence Group. I will say a special note to Councillor Ross Penhale Thomas, who didn't ask a question, he gave a statement, and it was a good statement, and I suggest you all go and watch it. You got a bit of applause from the people in the council, rightly so, because it was a fantastic statement, and he is the sort of person that you can see being a future leader of this council. And I hope he does get an opportunity to be up there as future leader or deputy leader. I think he'd do a fantastic job. There are many people out there, like Alex Williams, Amanda Williams, make fantastic leaders of this council. Anyway, I'm going to bring up the first clip, which is Councillor Freya Bledsoe. Okay, as you can see, I haven't learned how to clip things, so I've got multiple windows open. I do apologise. So here we go. We'll go on the first question. We'll go from there. Right. Okay, let's out of that and remove that. Let's get my pretty face back on. Anyway, as we saw there, we were talking. Councillor Bretto asked about the removal of the free parking for blue badge holders, which would be an estimated saving of about 40,000 per year. Now, you'll hear this come up a lot that it has to be a balanced budget. Now, they've estimated they're going to save 40,000, but yet, and they said the policy will be in place by the next financial year, which is just over a month away now. It's not possible because they've got to first do a consultation, which, as Janine Nightingale said, would not happen till at least April, maybe even May. Then it's got to go to council to see whether it will be budget. I'm sure the scrutiny committees will talk night and day about this, finding out on what the consultation is. And I think the earliest it will be implemented will be September, maybe even winter time. You are not going to get savings of 40,000 in this financial year, hence budget isn't balanced. And they have that legal duty, as you find out, as they keep reiterating, a legal duty to balance the budget. And it's not going to be balanced. So they're actually breaking their legal duty here and now. It becomes more prevalent later on when the independents of the council offered their own alternative budget, and it was refused by the 115 officer, Karis Lord, who we've heard speaking there, because we'll come on to that later because Amanda Williams asks the question about it, and we can talk more in depth there. But they call this a well-being budget. How is it a well-being for disabled people now having to pay for their parking? They find it difficult to get out as it is. Public transport is not always an option for them, so they have to park in bridge end towns. All BCBC is saying, because you can park with a disabled badge, you can park on double yellow lines. Just go there, park for free. Don't use the car parks, which are especially, some of them are specially done. We've got specialist bays for disabled people to park in. Right, so it's not right. And you think I'm getting a bit annoyed now. Wait till later on. It's going to be fun. I think it's a slap in the face. They don't have the figures in front of them. You'll see a running theme throughout these questions where a lot of councils will ask a question and they don't have the answers. They don't have the figures in front of them. They are not prepared. They should be prepared. That's a failure of the officers. That's a failure of the cabinet members. And how they can present a budget in this way is beyond me. Anyway, I'm going to move on to the next one now. It's a question from Councillor Tim Wood. If I can, hey, look at that, it's the next one up, which is lucky. I think there we go. This is the next one up. It's a question from Councillor Tim Wood. Let's bring it on. Right. As you can see there, the theme is starting to emerge now. Not having the facts and figures. Again, not actually going on answering the question that was asked about the cost of it, but focusing on their great recycling rates. Yes, they've got great recycling rates. They do well. And yes, you can talk about engagement and things like that. But fly tipping rates have been increasing and steadily increasing. One of the big affected areas has been Wild Mill. And our three county councillors there, Stephen Bledsoe, Tim Wood, who was there, and Stephen Eastbrook, have worked tirelessly and worked with Valleys to Coast and BCBC to try and start crafting a problem. Okay, it's not completely solved, but they're moving in the right direction to get things sorted. It's not something that'll happen overnight, and it's something that the Labour councillors who were in charge of that area 5 years previously never did, and it just got a problem worse and worse. But as you can see there, again, questions not really answered. They don't have the information in front of them. You come into a budget meeting, you've got to be prepared to be answer questions on everything regarding that budget. Even if it's down to the last penny, you should have those facts and figures in front of you. That is ill prepared again. If Councillor Spanswick didn't have it, Janine Nightingale, the head of communities and corporate, should have had those figures and should have been able to say, "I've got them. This is what they are." Um, BCBC look at fly tipping as if it's a new law that's just come in that they're getting up to speed with. It's not. It's been a law since before BCBC as an entity came into being. So it's not something that's just happened overnight. It's something that's been here 30, 40, even 50 years. I think fly tipping been a criminal offence. And I think powers were given to councils back in the early 2000s by the Labour government to actually enforce that. So, or before that. So it's not something that's brand new. Next, I'm going to, if I. Oh, hang on a second. I've got a knock at the door. Talk to you later. Sorry. Sorry about that. Living in shared house, people want to talk. Right. Let's get back to my. I know where I am. Right. Who's next? So that's it. Next is I this one. If not, then I will. Uh, no, right, right. Hang on. Technology problems. This is where I need two screens. Right. I'll go back a bit because I played that a bit too much. We may catch the Tim Woods one. I'll bring it back in now. You'll see wonderful Tim Wood there. We're going to go to his Britain's central colleague, Councillor Stephen Bledsoe. Before we continue, this is the first of the questions where somehow he manages to get three questions in one statement. And it's very clever of him. It is caught by the mayor, and he gets to do it to one. So it's good. But all three should be answered. I can't see why you not. Still has the three questions in. Still the three questions. Clever boy. Which was not the question. It was to remove one cabinet member that they added extra last year, which is completely an answer to a totally different question, not what was asked. Right, right. Leave it there. I'll just stay in the corner for now. It's much easier than flicking back and forth. As you see there, the question was asked because straight after the election, the cabinet actually met in the Coidamuster Hotel with refreshments and everything like that when they had perfectly good offices that they could have used. And it cost a lot of money. I think at the time it was quoted about £2,500 taxpayer money. Not only that, there's been a with the additional cabinet member that was added last year, one member, that's an extra £17,000 uplift. So we're getting on towards £20,000 there, which is half of what the Blue Badge would be saving. And the question was asked, would the council cut their cloth? In other words, would they not you spend public money going to hotels or adding cabinet members? Would they get rid of a cabinet member, which was asked? And all that was answered was, oh, we're not adding a cabinet member. That's not what was asked. What was asked was, are you going to get rid of that one that you created last year? And are you going to stop saving money? And then he went on about school budgets. Nothing about, oh, we're not going to go to hotels or anything like that. We're going to be fiscal and be responsible. And that is the thing with Hugh David. He doesn't answer the question that was asked. And it was quite a nice little dig there from Stephen Bledsoe with the rumours that just after the election, it took several rounds of voting for Hugh David to actually be confirmed as leader within the Labour Party, to be the one to stand as the leader for the council. Um, so would he still be there next year? That was a slight dig with that coming up again in May, I believe it is, whether the election of a new leader or continuation of the current leader. Um, so that was a nice little dig. And Stephen Bledsoe is very, very clever like that. There are very clever people within Bridgend County Independence. And I don't want to insult any of them because they're all clever in their own way. But politically minded, you've got Stephen and Martin, who are completely up there politically minded. They know when to rile people up, they know when to hold back. Um, and they're two of the most astute political minds that I know. Intelligence wise, you're full of them within that party. All 13 councillors bring intelligence in their own way. I'm hoping that's. Apparently, can't hear audio on clips. Is that the same for the other people on there? If you can't, could you let me know in comments? I don't know why that is. I'll try it again, but on the next one. The next one being Councillor Mark John from St. Bride's and Anasaldra. We'll try that again. If we're not getting the clips, I'll have to talk you through each clip as I remember them. So I'll try and find Councillor John now. Get, get rid of that. Uh, well, right. Have these set up in order. Right, 126 has got to be this one. No, right, sorry. Sorry, I hate this, not having two screens. It's hard to work at. Here we go. Councillor Mark John. Right, I'm going to pause that there because Martin's telling me that he can't hear the clips, so it's pointless playing them and you just watching these people. I could do a voiceover like they used to do on Mock the Week, but I don't think I'd be very good at that. So what I'll do is I'll do a basic outline and then talk about what they say as far as I can remember, because there's quite a lot to remember. Anyway, Mark John there was asking about the redundancies, what contingency is there in that budget, and seeing as um, they can take redundancies out of certain reserves, why are they not protecting the school's budget of 2%, which is about 2.1 million, um, with 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 that instead of letting people go? Um, Councillor Blundell, who is the cabinet member for education, refers the matter to Lindsay Harvey, who is the corporate director for education. Now, this is actually no, that's not where they actually give figures. He explains that the figures will be minimal. They can take it from other places. Don't really answer the question, not satisfactorily anyway. And it was there was no real answer apart from the 2% budget's going to be cut from the education budget. 2% is going to be cut from the education budget, really. After that, they moved. The next question was from Councillor Ian Williams. Now, Ian Williams talked about the Cardiff Capital Region deal, CCRD. And the fact that they can take, why are they not taking money from the capital reserves, which we've got nearly £110 million in capital reserves? Capital reserves are for projects such as building bus shelters, building schools. It's money they put away to do these things. Because it's a regional deal, which is towards project, then why can't it be taken from there? And how much has been taken from what area? Caris Lord, who is the Section 115 officer, financial officer, couldn't answer how much was paid last year that Ian Williams asked. Again, those figures should be on hand to her. Straight away, it should be known. And didn't really explain why it couldn't come from CCRD because they've already planned from it from other areas, from capital reserves because it's come from other areas. Again, this is a non-answer. This is not looking at alternatives. This is sticking your head in the sand and saying we'll do what we want to do, sod everybody else, sod any alternatives. Next, we come on to Councillor Tim Thomas, and he talks about the cost of the assisted learning. This is learning for disabled children, how much it will cost, what are the figures. And actually, for once, we get figures. We actually have figures from Lindsay Harvey, who replies. I think the cost was about £5 million for assisted learning needs and things like that, which is fantastic. We need to help that. My son's autistic and he does benefit from this, which is great. And great on Tim Thomas for asking the question and finding and actually getting figures and getting answers for once. As I said, I had clips for everything, but for certain questions, I've got them on my list. I'm not going to play them obviously because you can't hear, so it's silly. Next, we have Councillor David Harrison from Kennel Glass. I can't even read by handwriting. Sorry, let me get Councillor Harrison's up so I can remember what it was about because I can't read my handwriting. Yeah, I remember now. He asked, do we have a figure generated from revenue from capital projects or the capital reserves? Sensible question, easy question to actually answer. Actually, I'm going to remove that and put me back up because there's no point if I can't play the clips and you can't hear them. It's a sensible answer, but it's a sensible question. And Caris Law comes back and asks, I'm not sure what you're asking. Could you give me a bet? It's obvious what he's asking. What revenue is generated from the capital budget, from the reserves, from any projects? Again, when he asks the question basically the same way, and then she gets it, again, no figures. They don't have the figures in front of them. Again, it'll be at a later date, which is not transparent for public to see. It's all hidden away, which is very, very annoying. Then we move on to Councillor Alan Motham. I think that was about alternative budget, which is what Amanda Williams speaks about later. Let me just quickly play because there's so much. It was a 3-hour meeting. Right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Right. It was to do with building an alternative budget with other councillors. And Councillor Alan Watham pointed out that officers are supposed to work with all council members to produce a budget, whether it be the budget for the controlling party or an opposing budget or an alternative budget. The question was asked to the monitoring officer, Kelly Watson, who I'll state my personal opinion. Don't know why she's in that job. She is, I would like to say useless, but she's not useless. She's got a head on her shoulders. But it's clear where her politics and her loyalties lie. Last year, if you may remember, council members who wanted to vote against the budget were warned that what they were doing was illegal and they would have to write to her to give her the reason of why. No, they don't. And it turned out no, they didn't. For a monitoring officer, they should know this. They should have the question. Anyway, in reply to Councillor Alan Wathen-Coity's question about why officers haven't worked with other members of the council to produce an alternative budget if they wanted to, the response was they've been to all the scrutiny committees, which they have to go to anyway if they're called, and it's gone through scrutiny. And as far as she's concerned, that's good enough. Sorry, no, it's not good enough. They're here to talk. You work for the members of the council, the elected members of the council who work for the public. You don't just pick and choose who you want to talk to and how that is done. Under the Constitution, every member of that council can create we've got 50 members of that council. We could have 50 different budgets because every person wants to make their own budget. And officers have to work with them. It's not through scrutiny committees because scrutiny committees are a totally different thing. So I think personally she needs to wind her neck in, or somebody needs to kick her out the door because she is getting too big for her boots. She may be a nice person to work with, and that, but what you see of her in council meetings, she is a joke, she's diabolical, she has no business being in that position. Then we have Councillor Ian Spiller talking about the proposed plan since 2019 now, 8.11 million for the relocation of the Waterton Council Depot. It was going to be partly funded by the sale of other lands for houses, but at the last minute that was removed from the LDP because it was turned out it's on the floodplain, and so is this council depot. Now, this council depot has been there for longer than I've been in Bridgend, and I've been in Bridgend 30 odd years, 31 years this year, and it's been there longer than that. I would like to know, has it ever flooded? Okay, climate change, it may change the flooding thing. It may change floodplains, but until you start getting signs of it's going to flood, you don't need to move it. 8.11 million has been allocated for this project since 2019. That project has still not been done. We're 4 years later. Yes, we've had a pandemic in between, but we're still 4 years later. They haven't advanced it. Whatever money they have is just sat in capital reserves, not being used. So what's the point? Why can't we delay that for a couple of years? Move, I think it's 4 point something million into the normal budget, which would cover the education budget shortfall, 2%, which is 2.1 million. It would also cover the Blue Badge scheme, which is for 40,000. With money left over. Wow, surprisingly, somebody who's not a council, who doesn't have all the budgets in front of them, can work out how to save them money. But unlike you, David, who says later on in the meeting, nobody's come with an alternative proposal of how to save money to us. Well, it's been said many times in scrutiny committees and other meetings of what ways to save money. Even an alternative budget was produced by BCI. It was told it was not robust for the future, and even though it is more robust than the current budget, and it protects everything that is being cut, plus also reduces council tax to increase to 2.9%, not 4.9%. And actually saves money, and it's more robust for the future. Yeah, I'm getting a bit off topic there now, aren't I? So yeah, Kelly Watson needs to wind her neck and she needs to go. She's politically aligned to Labour. It's obvious in the way she talks about things. It's obvious the way she admonishes councillors in last year's budget and what she said this year. She has no business in being in that job. They're supposed to be apolitical in those positions, and don't think many are. Well, I think I've seen many meetings with Karis Lordin, the financial officer. I think she does her best and she works hard and she's generally sensible. I think in this budget meeting, it does come up that it does show a bit which way she probably does lean, but she seems like a competent officer. Kelly Watson, as the monitoring officer, is not competent at all and needs to go. That is my opinion. That is nobody else's opinion. It's not an opinion of BCI, it's not an opinion of Labour or any other people. It is my personal opinion based on my observations through council meetings over the last year. Uh, so there we go. There we are, Mr. David, Councillor David. There was a way to save money from your budget by just delaying even the moving of the Waterton depot, council depot. Next, we come on to Martin Williams, who talked about it was something that was, I guess you'd call a Freudian slip in a meeting that Councillor David was part of, saying, stuttering over his words again, as he often does, that there may be hidden money that's not part of the budget. And this is where I come in. Well, not for Martin or anything like that, but for for a request I did last year. Councillor David basically said it's absurd that there's hidden budgets, there's hidden money somewhere, when it's obvious there is. I'm going to bring it up now. Wrong one. Right. I'm going to bring it up now. This is... Right, I'm going to get rid of me off the screen, so hopefully it will blink. Me last year, I did a FOI request for the reserves of the council, 2021 to 22 and 22 to 23. I think it was March 2020. As we see there, it says in the response, total reserves held as at March 31st, 2021 were 182.349 million, of which 115.36 million were usable reserves at 66.98 million unusable. Why are they unusable? Nobody knows. Are they earmarked for projects? If they are, they should be in the capital programme or in the reserve fund allocated for specific things. Not just saying that, 66.98 million unusable. That's a lot of money. Council wouldn't need to be saving 17 million over the next 5 years. They wouldn't have even need to save 35 million over the previous 5 years if that money was there and if they could use that money. Anyway, we go on to section 2. Earmarked reserves held for specific purposes were 82.848 million. Capital receipts reserves and capital grants and applied reserves. Right, so this is for your projects such as schools, a bus shelter, and other things like that. Structural projects, say play parks, whatever. Now, in 2021, that was 82.8 million. We know some of that from 2019, 4 million odd, was for the Waterton site. Why are we holding on to this money for so long? If these projects aren't being moved forward, or we can delay them, let's move some capital funding from there. I know we can't move a lot because some of it is grant funding from Welsh Government or from what was the EU fund, even the People say you can't get it anymore. We're still in a 7 year cycle. That's why we had to pay the big divorce bill because we're part of the 7 year cycle. So there are funding programs in there. And we go on to next of the council fund is unallocated, and as of 31st of March 2021, this is 9.772 million. This is our general reserves, basically, as I understand it. So we had 9 million in March 2021. The next year, the total usable reserves held at 31st March 2022 was 141,883 billion. That's usable reserves. Now that is shot up by 36 million pound in a year. So they saved 36 million pound. They got some of that from grant funding. Why are you saving that money when you were trying to save 35 million over a year to keep services going? Over 5 years to keep services going, if you can save 30 odd million 1 year. So we go to earmark reserves for capital projects again, which is now 103.762 million. Okay, that's jumped up by nearly 20 million. So why is that? We've got a load of grants come in with. If we have, brilliant, that's great. Use the money. Don't just let it sit there in the bank account doing nothing. Get these projects going. Then we come on to the council fund is unallocated. Again, general reserves, I think, and now is 10 million, 10.1 million, which is about 400,000 more than what it was the year previously. But look at that. We've got 141.883 million of usable reserves. If you add up the other two numbers, 103 and 10, 113, where's the other 27 million pound that is unallocated there? So there's 27 million pounds in somewhere. Hugh David thought it was laughable that they're holding hidden reserves for something when it's clear by that there's 27 million pounds missing somewhere. Where is it? This is money that could easily keep this council going for the next 5 years. Wouldn't have to save anything. Wouldn't have to cut any budget unless something catastrophic happens again in the next 4 years. So why are you trying to save 17 million when there's 27 million pound somewhere? You're lying to the people of Bridgend, you're lying to the taxpayer, and you're lying to councillors. I think that's illegal in your position as a leader of the council. If you can come up with a plausible explanation of where this 27 million pounds went from last year that even wasn't registered last year, then yeah, we'd love to hear it. But if you have got that money, which it looks like you've got at least 27 million, if not adding that to the 66 million of unusable reserves, whatever that's for, we're talking 90 odd million pound there. That's 90 odd million pound. You've got to earmark for something. Tell us what it is it's earmarked for. And if it's a plausible project or a plausible service, fine, fair enough. Yeah, we hold our hands up and say, yeah, that's fine. We can't use it. But unless you disclose that, we're going to keep going that you've got 90 odd million pound of reserves somewhere that you're not allocating or telling people about. And you say we're lying. You say we're saying, I've got proof on an FOI request that there is that money somewhere for something. You're not telling people what it's for, and you're not doing anything with it. That is lying. That is hypocrisy of the highest order. And you shouldn't be leader of the council if you're going to do that. To be honest, I don't think you're right for a leader of the council anyway. You're too weak-willed. You think because of who your family are, you're entitled to it. You're not. And it's the same with Labour nowadays. Labour are not the party people's grandfathers, fathers, grandmothers and mothers voted for. They are not the party that was built off a working man, off miners. of people on the lowest rungs of society, the hard-working, grafting worker who's at the coalface. That's what the Labour Party was, and that's what the Labour Party isn't now. The Labour Party is the Tory party of the 70s, the 80s, screwing people over and thinking everybody's fine. Okay, the Tory party of the 80s had to sell off services like gas, electric, and that because Labour ballsed it up in the 70s. Okay, it wasn't all their fault. In 73, the budget created a boom economy which collapsed in just over a year. And then Labour got in power because of that in 74. And in 74, we joined the EEC, European Economic Community, which is a fantastic idea. I agree with that, making trade easier between countries in Europe. That is brilliant. But that's not what the EU is anymore. That's not what it's been for a long time, since the early 90s. Now it's a dictatorship that refuses to open its books to have itself audited when it's made law that other companies and other businesses and governments have to be audited. It's an establishment that moves twice a year at cost of millions of pounds. It's an establishment that has a European Parliament that is pointless because there are 27 unelected members, one from each country, that can make law that supersedes anything that the EU Parliament does. It can strike down what the European Parliament does. That was part of the reason why I wanted to go. I've got no problem with immigration as long as it's sensible immigration and immigration is what's needed. It shouldn't be harder for people from Commonwealth countries to come to Great Britain than it is for people in Europe. It shouldn't be harder for them. It's unfair. They're part of a community, the Commonwealth of Great Britain. We did awful atrocities to those countries and things like that. We owe them, and it should be easier for them to come here. I don't mean free open border immigration. That's just nonsensical, and that's what Liberal Dems call for quite often. That's what other people call for quite often. Just let anybody and everybody in. It's got to be sensible immigration that people work for. Okay, off the topic again. I do that quite a lot. I'm sorry. Anyway, the budget did pass in the end, but I want to speak about. I would say Ross Thomas's speech, but I can't get it up. I'd love to play that for you. It was good. It was a good statement, and he deserved a round of applause for that. I don't know how many Labour applauded him, but I'm sure quite a few members of their independent parties did. He's very well respected by councillors in the council and officers and things like that, and he should be. He's an example of what the Labour Party has become. Not who he is, that's not it. It's what they did to him and others who voted against the Labour Party on a subject, I believe merging with the Vale of Glamorgan, and were deselected by the Labour Party, and the people of his area in Mysteg, I can't remember, Mysteg East, I think. Sorry, Ross, I apologise if that's wrong. They made a fantastic choice of keeping him as their independent councillor when he stood when the Labour Party wouldn't let him. I don't think you could get any better representative for your area. Can't praise him enough. I can't praise Alex or Amanda enough. He's done lots for me. I know people don't like. There are a lot of people out there who don't like Martin Williams or Steve Bledsoe or Freya Bledsoe or Ian Williams, but they are salt of the earth people who would go to the wall for you if you just let them and just treat them normally. Treat them as people. Okay, they can get under people's skin sometimes, but we can all do that. We all say things we don't mean. We all bite back at comments. I think some of the ways some of these councillors have been treated, especially Freya, has been disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And I'm not talking about just general members of the public. You've got Labour Party members who have done it, Labour Party councillors who have done it, trying to ruin her and Stephen's business when they had a wonderful little sweet shop on Malton Street. Miss that place. Open it up again, guys. So I miss that. Anyway, Amanda Williams talked about the alternative budget. And she used a constitutional argument that, and she said I was a lawyer, changed with constitutional law, so she knows what she's talking about. Now, Bridgend County Independence in, um, I believe in, I can't think of the word, together with other councillors, independent councillors that are not part of BCI, put an alternative budget together. Now, I've read that alternative budget. It's up on BCI page. I advise you to go read it. Um, it's not a great budget. It advocates a 2.9% council tax increase, which is a lot. It's 2% lower than what it is now. So it's about £2.5, maybe £3 million increase to the council's finances, rather than the 5 million that Labour want to introduce. And so they asked the question, why isn't it? Now, Karis Lord came back and said it was submitted before the 10 p.m. deadline, 10 a.m. deadline last Thursday. She read it, didn't think it was robust, so she said I dismissed it. Sorry. Work with councillors, say, well, this is not robust. This is where you've got problems. Can you amend them in time? In time for us to go through this, to present this as an alternative budget. No, instead she just dismissed it, didn't show it to anybody else, just dismissed it. In her opinion, it was wrong. And this is where I see the leanings to one way. We were being reminded by the mayor, by the leader of the council, Hugh David, that there is only one budget available, and we have a legal duty to produce a balanced budget, which their budget isn't balanced, because the 40k, even if it's one penny out, it's not balanced. And the 40k, they're not going to get that this year, in the next financial year budget. So their budget is out of balance, it's illegal. So what they've banged on about is hypocritical and wrong. Anyway, Hugh David said, I haven't seen any alternative budget. I haven't had any alternative proposals to save the cuts to that. There have been many. I have said it in January, ways to do it. You can take capital reserve for project that you're not doing now. Delay building the schools, because it's pointless having these schools, having these flashing technology in all these schools if your teachers are leaving because they're having to be made redundant because the budget's just not there to hire them. It's pointless having all the technologies and that, because your greatest asset in a school is the teachers and the staff that are there to support the pupils to learn. It's pointless having these interactive boards and all the latest computers and all these fancy gadgets if you haven't got a teacher there to explain. And don't do what they're starting to do in America, where they have several classes, one teacher, and it's all done online and teachers online. The kids need personal interaction with teachers, so they could put their hand up and say, "Sir, I'm having trouble," or "Miss, I'm having trouble. Can you have a look at this for me and explain it to me?" That is what's needed. This is not a well-being budget, as Labour have championed on social media. Oh, this is a great budget. Now, I'm going to get on to the vote. It was won, I believe, 25 or 27 to 20. There were a couple of abstentions, Malcolm James and Jonathan Pratt. Very disappointed that they abstained from that. I think that was wrong. I think anybody who believes in education should have voted against it. I'd love a Labour person to stand up and have the balls to say, this is wrong. I'm voting against it. I believe in our people and I want our kids to have the best education. I want our disabled people to have the easiest and best access to our town centres. And they should have that for free. We should delay projects. It'd be nice for one of the Labour Party who has stood up and said that. There are some good Labour councillors. I think Reece Good's fantastic. Paul Davis, the way he was pushing on for the scrutiny committee to the cabinet to get answers on what it's going to cost for the net zero carbon thing in the next couple of years, and they refuse to answer that. They refuse to give figures on a lot of things. These, well, not refuse. They didn't have them to hand. They don't know what they are, and they'll give them to councils after. That's no good. You're in a budget. How can anybody vote for a budget if they're asking for certain figures and they're not getting them? They should all be there and ready. And the financial officer, at the very, very least, should be the one with all that information ready to go. The cabinet members for each of their departments should have their figures there in front of them, ready to go. It's an ill-prepared council. It's an ill-prepared controlling party. They don't care about people anymore. And they haven't done for a long, long time. People can see that it's starting to turn around, especially in the central Bridgend area. It's basically all independent now from community councils to county council level. And well done, there's a lot of working people there. And I don't think people like Amanda Williams, Martin Williams, and Stephen Bledsoe get the credit they really deserve to making that happen. I've never seen anybody work as hard as Steve, especially when it comes to helping people, and especially helping the community of Wild Mill. It holds a big place in his heart. He grew up there, and those people are special to him, and he does whatever he can to help them. That's not saying the other councillors don't do their bit. They all do. They all work hard. Even Labour councillors, they work hard. I've met a few. Paul Davis, I admire him a lot for standing up to the cabinet on that meeting, saying scrutiny want these figures and keep pushing. He never did get the figures, unfortunately. He's good. I can't say anything bad about my interactions with him. Have been brilliant. There's some I really, really don't like. I think, yeah, I'll say it. Graham Walters, one I don't like. With this compulsory purchase order of Porthcawl. Graham Walters, who was an independent councillor on Porthcawl Town Council, I'm guessing realised the only way he's going to get elected to county council was part of Labour. That's why he went back to Labour after being out there for 30 years. Anyway, he did a statement on the compulsory purchase Porthcawl. And remember, Labour Party is supposed to be for the working man. These are the miners. Miners who used to go to Porthcawl for the break in the summers when they used to have trains coming down from the valleys to Porthcawl. No train station there now. It would benefit from a train station. It would increase tourism massively with a train station. Instead, they want to build a £4 million bus shelter. Yeah, that's right, a bus shelter. Not a terminal that has a cafe, information centre, toilets, and other things. No, bus shelter, £4 million bus shelter with a bit of grass on top of it. Yeah, that's going to last. What a waste of money. Anyway, the CPO Porthcawl front for houses, basically. That's what it is. It's not anything else. They've thrown a little bit of park in there just to appease people for green spaces. But it's about houses and it's about money for the council. Getting more council tax because that's the thing. They think that's the only way they can make money is council tax. Bridgend, Merthyr, and Rhondda are three of the poorest areas in Wales, and Bridgend, Merthyr, and Rhondda have three of the highest council taxes in Wales. How do you figure that? How does that make any sense in this world? That the people at the lowest end of the ladder are paying the most. It's wrong, and that stems quite a lot from Cardiff, the Welsh Assembly government, and how they award things. Cardiff always seems to get extra money, whereas other councils quite often get what they receive slightly cut by 0.5% or whatever it is, or a very tiny amount of 0.5% in extra. Okay, it's more this year, it was more last year to Bridgend and other communities, but Cardiff seems to get it all, and they've got a third of the population, they get more money, and they've got a larger income. I think it's silly they do that. Anyway, this budget is not for the people, and Graham Walters, I got off topic again. I'm so sorry. I do that a lot. Graham Walters, in his statement, he said, "We don't want to attract the sort of holidaymaker or tourist." And remember, this is a Labour Party now, built on the working man, built on the man who's going to buy, which I think is insulting. I told somebody the other day on Facebook, "Kiss me quick" hats and their little booths. I think that's insulting to people, to anyone, especially anybody from Labour Party. We don't want people who buy tat. We want the more affluent. That's not a Labour statement. From Tory Party, yeah, I could probably understand that. They're an elitist party, or supposed to be. But I think they're getting more towards the working man than Labour are. Labour are getting further and further away. I don't think Jeremy Corbyn, as much as people wanted to say he's all a proper working man and things, never was. He was an intellectual. He was elitist. The last Labour leader who was a true working man, who was a very nice man, my father met him a couple of times, was John Smith, and unfortunately he died. And I think him dying ruined the Labour Party because it opened it up to Tony Blair taking over, and basically Tony Blair was a Conservative in all but name. Anyway, it's a bad budget, a really, really bad budget, and I can't emphasise enough. And I think the Labour Party have screwed over the people at Bridgend yet again. I think people should be out protesting in front of the council offices. We've got a month to stop this budget. Okay, we probably can't, but it doesn't come into effect till the 6th of April, which is the next financial year. We've got a month and 4 days. Why not protest and say, we don't want this budget? Think of an alternative way. We're the people who put you in power. We're the people who take you out. If people started doing that in mass numbers in front of the council offices, Labour would quickly change their mind, and somehow money will miraculously appear from somewhere. Oh, look, we found this. We checked down the back of the sofa, and oh, we found some money. How lucky are we? And they'd probably even reduce council tax. They actually froze it last year as an election ploy to get more votes, which worked in certain areas, especially Brackler. I think that was wrong, and Brackler are suffering now, especially in the community council side of it. But yeah, it's a bad budget. I hope people band together and start protesting. I hope borough councillors who do oppose this budget start doing it as well, working with the people who you've fought hard for up to this budget, including this budget. I'm not saying you didn't. You did. You scrutinised the hell out of it in your 3 scrutiny committees. You got stuff off the table that they put on the table to cut, which was fantastic. But there's more to do. There's money. There is money there. I've proved that with the FOI request. There's £27 million from the 31st of March 2022 that is unaccounted for in anything. Where is that money? That's £27 million. We wouldn't need to cut a service. We wouldn't even need to have a council tax rise. We could freeze council tax again. We could probably even lower it by 2-3% and still have money left over. We could add an extra 2% to the budget of the education instead of cutting 2%. So they get a little bit extra money. We could keep the free parking. We wouldn't need to touch the reserves. So where's this £27 million? Well, I can sort out the education budget, the council tax, and the 40,000 in 2 moves. 1, scrap this bus shelter. 2, forget about the CPO and Porthcawl. Both of them cost millions, much more than what the savings would be. Scrap them both for now. Come to them at a later date. So forget about things like that. or even scrap the Waterton depot for now, moving that moving that to a third place. You've got another depot just off the M4. Why not expand that slightly? I think there's a possibility there for that. And I think that's got salt bins. So, unfortunately, Janine, that isn't going to say that the salt bins at Waterton would be down. We wouldn't have the salt. We would just use land you've already got. Don't purchase land. You want to put it in Brunel Industrial Estate. This is not going to be the area in Brunel Industrial Estate to put it, because you're planning to have a plant there. I can't remember what hydrogen plant there. So you're not going to have the room to put your council thing there. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. It's been an hour and 14 minutes that I've been on here. I'd love to have had somebody come on with me and discuss this, a councillor or something. As I say, I don't know if I'm going to be back to do this properly. I'm still not 100%. I'm still going through a lot. Still having trouble with the housing. I don't think since January, since I closed this down, I've actually seen anybody from BCI. Any of my colleagues haven't been to a meeting. I haven't been seeing for the community recently. I'm sorry. That is my fault. I apologise to the people of Litchard and Coity that I've not been able to do anything. But you've got fantastic councillors who will do probably a better job than I do in Darren Barrell, Stephen Bledsoe, and Alan Wattham. So you can always go to them or any other councillor on Coity Hire. They'll all do a fantastic job. They're all fantastic councillors. It's, I'm going to say, and it's going to make other people question, I think it's the best community council in Bridgend. It's certainly the most progressive the last 5 years, and with the plan and what they have planned for the next 5 years, or what they want to do in the next 5 years, they certainly are very progressive and want to do a lot for this community and protect a lot of assets and bring assets into community ownership rather than the County Borough Council threatening to build something on a field or that. It's fantastic, and I think what we've done on community council was built on the last 5 years that myself, Martin Williams, Alan Wattham, Kerry, the original Kerry Evans, who's no longer on the council, Dean Barrington, Alison Hughes. We've been joined by other councillors now. We had Labour councillors on there before, and they did a fantastic job. Richard Young was fantastic councillor, Cherie Hughes, Anita Davis, I think it's Davis. Fantastic councillors, and I'm sorry to see them go because I think we worked well together. And as a council, politics never came into it. It was what can we do for the community, what is best for the community, and we all pulled in the same direction to do that. And I do miss them, and I wish them all well. Anyway, Coity Hire is the best community council in Bridgend. I know I'm biased, but it is. And we've been joined by some fantastic councillors, and Coity for the last 5 years has had an excellent representative in Amanda Williams. I don't think you could get much better I don't think even Ross Thomas or Alex Williams would have done any better. I think Amanda's been brilliant, and the success of County Borough Councillors in BCI, from BCI County Borough Councillors, the 12 we added this year, I think that was all down to the hard work of Amanda. And it's right that she's leader of the opposition group, and she does a fantastic job. She never stops. How she finds the time, I do not know. That she is Wonder Woman. She doesn't stop. Martin, you're a very lucky man, but then again, Amanda's very lucky. Martin's a fantastic guy. I know there are a lot of people out there who give him the time of day, but you're wrong. You just talk to people. You may have political differences, you may have spats online, but I'm sure if you came to one of these people and asked for help, they would do whatever was in their power to help you, regardless. Because at the end of the day, politics does come into it, but the most important thing to each one of those councillors, those independent councillors, not just from BCI, from the other groups as well, the most important thing is the people they represent and the people of Bridgend County Borough Council, Bridgend County Borough. So thank you for tonight. I'll say goodbye now. I think I bored everybody because everybody's gone. I'm all alone. Um, I've left the Samaritans number up. I hope you enjoy. I hope to see you again soon. I can't promise when that'll be. Goodbye.